Hello and welcome back to Low Tier Talks League. That's a show name that I always forget what we're called. Um so anyways, we didn't podcast like all of last year. I think we did one for the group stages, but I can't remember if that was last year or 2 years ago, which really is kind of sad in of itself. It's been a while since I've podcasted. I can make a million excuses, but that's not why you guys are listening. I doubt anyone's listening in at all. But we'll be changing the format a little bit. So, new beginnings. I think we should do new introductions. What do you think, DJ?
Oh man, we got to do new introductions.
Just
See, I got the excuse that I can only podcast when you want to. So I have my out. Be like, I haven't podcasted because Jay hasn't.
that's fair. Um, if you're friends with me on Facebook, 'cause I'm pretty sure I have 0 subscribers on Blogspot, Blogger, whatever Google's calling it these days. I did do power rankings for North America and EU. I don't have them on the top of my head. Well, here I'll read off my predictions. But basically, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of recap the last week. We're going to find something interesting to talk about, and we're going to look at these games and which games we think are going to be the most interesting or which ones are the most important to watch. Um, I feel like last year, a lot of the games that we were doing predictions for, we disagreed on one or two of them, and then for the rest of them, we basically said the same thing, but we also had the same thoughts for why we thought those games were going to go that way. So to kind of cut time, we're going to try doing this new format. We'll see how it is. So we're going to start off with North America. My North American predictions last week, before watching any games, were TSMS first, Team Liquid, Echo Fox, Cloud9, CLG, Optic, Clutch Gaming, 100 Thieves, Golden Guardians, and FlyQuest. I don't think I told you I was going to do my power picks, so I don't know if you have power picks in order, but I know you were telling me what tiers you thought were like the best and worst. I'd be interested in hearing yours.
Yeah, mine was basically Team Liquid TSM. I put a lot of stake into C9 before this week, so they were my third because I like Svenskeren. And then I was gonna do like CLG as fourth, Echo Fox fifth, and then everyone else more or less. Um, but I have seen the way after watching this week. My power rankings, and I'm sure yours as well, have changed significantly after this week.
Actually, that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. I wanted to address the well, actually, before I go into that, my power rankings haven't changed too much. But real fast before we do that, just because I'm gonna forget about it later, I think it's gonna mess up the flow. Let's talk about EU power rankings. So mine, from best to worst: G2, Fnatic, Misfits, Splice, Unicorns, Schalke, Giants, Rocket, Vitality, and H2K. Again, this was about an hour before the first game even started. This was before I watched any games, before I listened to any analysts. That was my list.
Yeah, as for me, I had G2 first, Misfits second as well. Other than that, I most of these rosters were like just kind of unknown quantities for me, so I didn't really do a power ranking for you because of that. Um, I wouldn't have put Fnatic like I probably would have put Fnatic like fourth or fifth just because I don't believe in that team very much. But they came out last Worlds and surprised me, but I don't know.
That's
But yeah, no, I definitely have a power ranking after watching the games. But
Yeah, and my European power rankings definitely changed a lot more than my North American ones. But with that, I'll get to that in a moment. I was wanting to recap this past week, but I think before we do that, I was really interested in talking about the meta with you.
oh,
I th- I think specifically the ADC meta because I feel like there was a point last year and 2 years ago where the ADC meta was pretty varied, but most of the time, including right now, the ADC meta has been pretty stagnant. So I'm gonna throw this onto my background real fast, just so you guys can see what I see. And this here, and DJ, I sent this picture to DJ, but he can't actually see it. So this is the picks, ADC picks in North America, Europe, Korea, and China I don't know if you want to pull that picture up. I kind of wanted to talk about that real fast. I want to see what your
No, no,
opinion
yeah,
was.
I have it up. I have it up.
So what do you think? Talk to me through this ADC meta. Well, not really ADC meta. Just talk about this meta for ADC right now. What are
So
your
first,
thoughts?
I'm actually going to disagree with you. I think we've never really had a very varied ADC meta. I believe there's always been two or three top picks, and then everyone else kind of falls to the wayside. I just think that over the last couple years, we've switched those top three very frequently, just because of changes. Like, of course, Arden meta changed quite a bit. Lethality meta changed a lot, and that was basically both happened of those happened last year. So there was always a top three. The top three just switched at one point.
I'll agree
Um,
with that.
as for the current picks, what we are seeing is Callista still basically top in every region. Makes absolute sense. She has way too much objective control with her Rend, and she's hard to hit, even for pros. Having to deal with someone who's hopping around all the time is annoying as hell. Um, but so her being basically 100% pick ban makes a lot of sense. Tristana, Kog'Maw, or yeah, it's Tristana, Kog, and Ezreal that are next. Here is a little bit of difference. Because we've actually seen, because Tristana, while she's almost always really strong in my opinion, or at least like she can work because she's a late game character. She's a hyper carry. She's always
Hypercarry with
going to
mobility.
be, yeah, a hyper carry with mobility. She's always going to be at least semi useful in any meta. We're seeing her a lot more with this meta just because once again she's really safe. She has a lot of self peel, and she can get to that late game point. We're also seeing Kog'Maw pop up a lot more now, which is almost odd because when you think Kog'Maw, you think, well, he needs a lot of defense to, keep him safe. Whereas the current meta has shifted a lot more towards everyone's really squishy, so high damage champions work really well. Just because of the rune changes and the lack of defensive stats for a lot of people. But with itemization changes and just what supports are really strong right now, it seems like he's come back in a big way. That people are prioritizing this pick, in my opinion, almost way too much. Like you could see, he has 100. He's the only other 100% pick ban out of this entire list. Other than actually, no, that's not true.
Ezreal and
In
Courier.
Korea, Ezreal's also 100%. But yeah, he's one, or Kog'Maw is one of the other 100% picks as opposed to getting tongue tied. But yes, I'm not sure what exact itemization changes changed it too much. But yeah, he's super in meta right now. And then Ezreal, Kleptomancy is just really good on anyone who could use it. It's why Gangplank's coming back top in a strong way right now. And so being able to proc that with his Q, basically what he already did, and get a bunch of free gold off it is why he's so hotly contested right now. After that, Varus, honestly, mostly just seems to be a comfort pick for basically every AD carry main, or every AD carry position in every region. Because I don't think it's particularly stronger than anything else. The only thing I'm truly surprised about is how much Xayah has fallen off, because
Yeah.
she's another character that has just a massive amount of utility and never really has a weak point in the game. So yeah, I'm not surprised that's the meta. Like I said, Xayah not being up there is odd, I think. Vayne was not picked in North America, so it only was really Korea that was using that too
And
much.
China.
Korean.
China actually picked her 5 times. Looks like, yeah.
Yeah. So
But
another hyper carry. While Twitch just seems left in the wayside, which is odd. But yeah, other than that, most of the other non-picks make sense. Miss Fortune might be good in solo queue, but she's not really good in professional play.
no,
As an
not when
AD
you can
carry.
stop her ult so easily.
Jin's not safe in this meta. Sivir's not safe in this meta. But yeah, that's what I think of that, the meta of the ADCs right now. It makes sense who's where.
All right, so let me ask you this. There was, I think, like 2 or 3 nerfs. I think it was just 2 nerfs in a row for Ardent Sensor. There was a nerf right when World started that wasn't on the World's patch. And then I believe right after that, they took away the lifesteal on the item. That might have been during the World's patch, but they also have been patching it throughout last season. And it shows when you look at the champions that were selected for the most part at Worlds. You know, you had the three that you were talking about: Tristana, Kog'Maw, and Twitch were wildly popular. And then later, you saw Kalista, you saw Caitlyn. Every once in a while, I think Uzi pulled out a Vayne once or twice, which is pretty exciting. Do you think? And I think we can all agree too that the Ardent the Ardent meta was not great. It wasn't very fun to play against. You just basically farmed until you had enough gold to buy Ardents for your support. Then you just made sure that your team had the better peel. Do you think that the nerf that they were trying to do to Ardent was a success, considering that that three of the top four ADCs right now in the entire world, at least in the major regions, are still hyper carries between Kalista, Tristana, and Kog'Maw, with Ezreal
Honestly, I
obviously
don't
being the
think
fourth.
Callista ever really used Arden as well as the other three. But that's personal opinion because Callista just kind of, I don't know. Tristana, like I said, is safe. That's why she's always picked. She'll always have high range. She'll always scale well in the late game. And that, I don't think the Arden changes did that much to the ADC meta. Mostly because of just how the meta shifted afterwards. Currently, it seems like everyone wants to go scaling, and we'll talk about that as we get into the actual games, where things that you want to snowball, things like early game champions, just aren't working right now in the meta. And like I said, we'll discuss that a little bit later. There are a bunch of factors for that. So yeah, the hyper carries are just stronger because of that. And the rune changes helped a little bit too, just because Ardent was also really big because it gave you a bunch of attack speed, along with those procs. So you had people like Twitch and Tristana who, or not Twitch and Tristana, Twitch and Varus, I think was the other big one. Who, no, Vayne. Vayne was the other big one. Who didn't like building attack speed early, who now didn't have to. They could now build straight damage and could coast off the Arden buff. The same with ADCs that really needed lifesteal. And now that I don't believe lifesteal has actually been taken, or the health per hit has actually been taken off of Ardent, but I know I'm pretty sure it's only been slashed considerably. Because I think it went from like 45 to like 10.
Oh wow, that is
But
huge.
I'd have to check. Yeah, I'd have to check the actual patch notes to remember that. Either way, it ain't being built by anyone, so it's not. And of course, the current support meta is mostly like Engage or Braum or Tom Kench, things that don't have the heal to proc it anymore. So we're
Okay,
not seeing it built basically at all.
and you know, I know that the support meta kind of affects this too. You're not seeing as much Lulu and Janna this season as you did last season, around Worlds time specifically. Now you're seeing more of the Tom Kenches, you're seeing more of the Brahms, and you're seeing more of these tankier supports, which I think is kind of interesting because, especially like Braum can't really build Ardent Sensor. He doesn't have a consistent way to proc it. So I guess so maybe Ardent Sensor isn't really the problem this year. I haven't seen too many people even mentioning Ardent Sensor, when they're talking about these games. The thing that I thought was really interesting is I always feel like Varus and Ashe are very similar in the same sense that Kog'Maw and Twitch are pretty similar. Just similar playstyle, similar build patterns, similar power spikes. And we see Twitch was only played once in all four major regions. Whereas Kog'Maw has been played. Kog'Maw's one of two champions that has over 50% ban rate in all four regions. Why hasn't anyone picked up Ashe?
The difference between Varus and Ashe. So Ashe has that fun little slow ability. She has a W, but honestly, Varus's Q you can hit from anywhere. W gets blocked by minions. W can be really predictable. W can sometimes just straight up miss because the hitbox is the straight lines. She has arguably a useless skill in E, but so does Varus. Even if
I
the
wouldn't.
site,
I would disagree. It's good for team fights because of the grievous wounds, and of course popping your blight passive.
Oh no, I'm referring to so Varus has his W blight passive is what I mean.
Oh, okay.
That doesn't have an active. I'm referring to his W doesn't have an active, whereas her E doesn't do damage. I'm referring
Oh,
to
okay.
basically skills that don't do immediate damage.
Okay, I get you.
Of course, Ash's E is good for scouting, but as we were saying, it doesn't seem like Vision is too bad in the meta right now. Um, I say that, but man, I've been hearing about dark spots all over the place. But she's not being picked. More or less, it might just come down to she doesn't get attack speed from any source now. Whereas Verisk, has his last hits to really get those eight or to get ramped up and get some more attack speed, whereas Ash has to build it. And it almost seems like you wanna get to those power spikes quicker, and that's why Ash isn't played. Although honestly, like I said, I think Varus is such a big pick as kind of like the well, this is all that's left option. Is just because I think a lot of the 80 carries that are playing right now are just comfortable with him.
And I could agree with that. When you have, 70% ban rate on Kalista in North America, 90% in Europe, freaking 90% in Korea. He was banned 18 times in Korea and 17 times in China. Tristana, or not Tristana, Kog'Maw was banned 15 times in Korea, 19 times in China. When you're spending these, and a lot of those bans are also in the first block of bans. There were a few Kalista and Kog'Maw bans that happened during the second round of ban phase, but for the most part, both of them were predominantly in the first round. So when you're focusing that much on ADCs, there's not really um, that many times that you can, or that many ADCs that you can play. ADCs only have like 12 or 13 champions that you could play as an ADC. They're the smallest champion pool in the game outside of the meta. Obviously, in the meta that's debatable. I'm pretty sure you want to talk about mid picks soon. But when you look at Varus, he wasn't banned at all in North America. He was banned twice in Europe, 4 times in Korea, twice in China. He was banned less times than he was picked in every region, which is super rare. If you're looking at this list, there's not that many champions who were picked more times than they were banned. I could definitely see that. Do you think? So my last question before we move on to a different topic: do you think we can expect to see these same 4 power picks, the Kalista, the Tristana, the Kog'Maw, the Ezreal, and debatably the Varus?
For the foreseeable future, it doesn't seem like Riot really wants to change anything with the ADC meta. So yeah, I feel like that is going to stop. It seems like Riot's more concerned about fighters in the meta currently, and they're really focusing on that. There was a dev blog post earlier today, and that seems to be what they're focusing on. There's actually a lot of stuff that they're not mentioning what seems purposely, and we'll talk. That's mostly about the stopwatch problem that's currently really relevant in pro play. But we'll get to that more with mid. I assume I really think so. Yeah, I don't think Riot has it on their. I think they have it on their radar. I don't think they have anything to really change it right now. I think they're all right with where it's sitting right now,
All right.
or they just don't have the time.
So since we're still talking about the meta, did you want to talk about mids? I don't have a fancy chart for mids. I wasn't. We didn't prepare very well
You
for
don't
this
need a fancy
podcast.
chart. I can tell you who the top band mids are. Just like I can tell you who the top band top is. Um, so mid lane, we have our Holy Trinity currently, which honestly, we always have a Holy Trinity. Let's be real here. There's always like 3 or 4 mid champions that are always prevalent. It's the same as ADCs. The top three, number one is Azir, claimed by basically every analyst is the most strongest champ in the meta right now. He had the changes to his Q that have made him considerably easier to play, while also basically keeping his power the same. And in a game like I'm saying, where early game isn't as important as it used to be, where everyone's playing scaling champions and waiting for that mid to late power spike and then just running away with it there to close out games. We're seeing Azir come back, obviously, as he is one of the most powerful late game mid laners in the game. Hell, actually, I'll get to that in a moment. Second is Ryze. Ryze has a lot of utility with his ult, has a lot of burst with his EQ combo. If played in the right hands, he Sorry. So my screen went off for a second. I thought like I just closed. Um, has a lot of power, has a lot of utility. We're seeing him as kind of an Azir counter. I've heard it said both ways. We're like, no, Azir counters Rise. No, Rise counters Azir. And we've seen people win on both sides of it. So, and the third one is Malzahar. Once again, it's a lot for Malzahar. What I've been hearing is he has a lot of lane clear. So it takes him a while to get up to that push potential, but around mid game when he can push really hard, they basically just use him for that. And then his ult's always good for pick potential. The fourth one that we're not really seeing anywhere, or at least I didn't see in EU or NA, but we're seeing a bit of more in Korea is Vigar. Excuse me, I always say his name wrong, or Vagar, however you pronounce it. Apparently he's coming into the meta. And honestly, that should be the biggest indication that we are in a scaling meta is when Vagar is actually meta to play. He has a lot of utility with his E, obviously. His W and Q, or his W isn't the most reliable amount of damage, but when it hits, it hurts. And his ultimate can shut down that other hyper carry that's on the other side of mid lane. Or more actually, let me rephrase that because it's an execute now. I sometimes forget that. He could shut down any important target. And he's basically infinitely scaling. So yeah, we're seeing that a lot more. Of course, we're also seeing unique counter picks. We're seeing pocket picks for people. Orianna's never really out of the meta, as much as people always want to say that she's bad. Well, that's a personal thing. Like every year I'll hear like, oh, Orianna needs some buffs. No, she doesn't. Orianna is always in the meta because her ult is game changing. Like we've seen PoE on it. We've seen a couple of other mids that'll default to it when they want a little more team fighting pressure. We've seen Jensen counterpick the Malzahar with Zillion. So we've seen people, a couple people attempt to counter Azir with Xerath, which in theory works because you can poke out a Xerath from a significantly larger range than he can hit you from. But you take team fighting hits for that. So we'll see if that actually ends up being an actual counter pick or if people just keep doing the trifecta. And then, yeah, that's mid lane, more or less, right now. You go top, you see the same thing. You see Gangplank with Kleptomancy, infinite scaling. You see Gnar, team fighting potential. Ornn is banned every single game, or he gets picked. Yeah, it's either hyper tank, or it's hyper scaling, or it's hyper team fighting.
And it's kind of crazy because I feel like the top mid and ADC, the traditional carry roles, have been so locked in what people are playing. It's almost, I don't want to say boring. I still really enjoyed watching these games, but pick ban face isn't as fun anymore. But then you look at the support and especially the jungle picks, and you see, I feel like those are a lot more varied. I don't
definitely jungle. Jungle is extremely varied right now because you basically, what does your team need? Does it need someone who can help your lanes not get not get kicked in early? Do you need a tank that peels well? Do you need someone to make flashy plays? There's definitely a lot more jungle variety right now. Heck, excuse me. There's even another one that I completely forgot. Do you need your jungle to sit in the jungle and power farm until they're a super tank? All of those things we're seeing right now. There's definitely a lot more variety in the jungle than anywhere else right now because they're what has to fill in the blanks for a lot of these teams.
And I think that's really cool too, especially in North America where you see a lot of really strong carry junglers between Svenskeren, Acadian, Contracts. I know I'm missing another really big one, Mike Young. And just to name a few. So I think that's really cool that we're being able to see these junglers do really well. I know last season Contract struggled a bit when it became a tank meta, and maybe we'll see that again. Riot seems to rotate between tank meta and squishy meta. I mean, I guess you can really boil everything down to just two things: tanky and not tanky. Um, but I think next week we should kind of look at these lanes a little bit more and see how they evolve. Especially, I'm really curious to see how top lane evolves because I feel like top lane has potential to have other champions besides Gangplank, Ornn, and Gnar that I think would be pretty interesting to see. But let's move on from that if you don't mind.
Go for it.
All right, so I wanted to address the elephant in the room, and from here on out, we're probably going to be talking more about North America and EU. They're just easier to watch. China and Korea play at insane times. They're still a best of three formats. It's hard to catch up on all of them, and they also have I think their week is 3 or 4 days, whereas North America and EU are still just 2 days. Um,
Yeah,
so
I've seen a couple of their matches. It's how I'm aware of like the Viger meta and stuff like that, but I've only seen a couple matches.
and I keep track of it a little bit too in passing, but I don't feel confident I can speak intelligently about it. So I want to address the elephant in the room here, and that is the amount of O2 teams in North America specifically. In Europe, the only O2 team is Unicorns of Love, and I think that's surprising in the sense that they're the only 0 and 2 team, and teams like H2K or Rocket or even Giants aren't O2 as well. It's just for me, it's surprising that they're the only team in the EU that's O2. But North America, you have Counter Logic Gaming, you have Optic Gaming, you have TSM, and maybe less surprising to a lot of people, you have Golden Guardians. Um, what do you think about that? Is it too early to panic? It's only week one. TSM especially are notoriously slow in picking up the new meta. What are your thoughts on that?
So, um, we could talk about EU later because EU has a much more interesting thing going on with it right now. But for the for NA, it seems more like there's definitely a talent gap, I'd say, between the bottom teams and the top teams. Golden Guardians being low makes sense. They have a lot of people that you wouldn't rate at the highest in their support or like in their various positions. You got Lorlo contracts high, definitely Matt. Um, there's always a chance that High comes out with a shot calling, but he's never been known for his mechanical plays. Contracts, I honestly don't know how he ended up here when he was trying to find better places, but whatever. Lorlo has always been middle of the pack, definitely in Matt. Honestly, I don't think Matt's a very good support. And regardless of how good or bad Deathly is, doesn't matter when you have a really bad support. Optic had at least some strong showings in their games. Versus 100 Thieves, they did pretty good early game and then just kind of didn't know how to close out.
But
And we
100
saw that
Thieves
in their
are
game
2 and
versus
0.
Liquid too. Say what?
100 Thieves are 2 and 0.
As Optic, I said. Optic
Oh.
is really good in the beginning of the game.
Oh, okay. I miss her. My bad.
Yeah, Optic is really good early game, but has problems closing out games. We've seen that in both their games this time. And Optic, I feel like after seeing them watch TL, I think this roster might need some time, but I think they're going to do a little better. I honestly have them beating TSM next week.
Oh, wow.
But because I think TSM's running a low right now. But they have good enough players. I don't think I think they'll make it into playoffs. I don't think they'll make it into top 4, but I think they'll at least make it into playoffs. Clutch or 100 Thieves impressed me a little bit this week. Quite a bit, or actually, they impressed me quite a bit. Actually, I enjoyed watching 100 Thieves. And not just because they have really cool jerseys.
Man, everyone's been saying that.
Yeah, no, they like the baseball jersey theme is super neat. Just like I also like how Optic has the flag of where their person comes from because they're such kind of they're really a diverse team. And so it's neat to see like the patches for them. But yeah, 100 Thieves has actually shown up a lot more than I was expecting, especially with their late pickup of Afromu. I was like, this team looks like it's kind of reaching. Afro didn't look great last year. It feels like he just kind of happened upon this team. But they picked up Cody Sun, who has shown to be a very talented uh, ADC. Ryu can carry the corpse of any team at least to playoffs. Some days was really good, and he's still all right. And Meteos has been playing a lot better too.
I just about 100 Thieves. I think it's funny because they just took all these players who last year looked like they were on the downward trend. Someday on Dignitas looked really uninspired. Actually, Medius would be the exception, I think, because right before last year, he kind of had this persona of being a washout. He was talking about how he hated playing the supporty type of or the gank heavy type of junglers, and he just wanted to farm and more or less just be brainless about it. Ryu at one point got pulled last year because of motivational issues and got replaced by I want to say Selfie, but I'm 100% sure that's wrong. Cody's son, while he looked good in North America when they went to Worlds, did not look all that great while he was there. There's that one infamous fight where he flashes and pulls a wild turtle and dies. And even Aframo, maybe not so much Afram, but COG in general last year looked incredibly uninspired. They looked like they were having motivational issues, and I'm not sure what was causing that. I think a lot of the blame should fall on Aframo because he's a shot caller, he's the lead motivator for the team. And I think it's just kind of funny that 100 Thieves took all of these players and they're looking really good.
They are. I wouldn't say really good. They're definitely looking like a middle of the pack team, maybe upper middle pack. So I am looking forward to their games next week. Other than that, Liquid was billed as the super team, and they're looking that way. These players, most of them have played with each other before in one sense or another. And they're seeming to mesh really well. So they went 2-0 this time. They did look a little shaky versus Optic early on, but you can never call stuff in this meta that quick. That's going to be a lot of times where people are going to look a little shaky early game, but it's because they're on scalers. I think that's a meta that we're going to see a lot of. TSM's looking really shaky now. I feel like they're eventually going to pick it back up. I still wouldn't rate them anywhere below third just because TSM eventually adapts and eventually starts doing well. So I think they'll start to pick up here pretty soon. Let's see here. Then we have Clutch. I like Clutch's team. Mostly I like Lyra. But Clutch ended up 1-1. That's right. Who'd they lose to second game? They lost to Echo Fox. That makes sense. Clutch is looking like another lower to mid-tier team. Febvin still isn't the mid laner that he was 2 seasons ago. Lyra looks neat. Apollo has never been great, and Hakuho is a decent support. I think middle lower pack for them. I think they'll probably take games off Golden Guardians. I think they'll probably take games off FlyQuest, just because FlyQuest is another team that I think is lower to mid. I like Anda. I like Keen. But even in their game where they won versus TSM, you're seeing a lot of the old ways. You saw like there was one point, I think like 20 minutes in, you just see Wild Turtle flash in and then walk away. And like people are just like, it's Turtle. And I'm like, that'll get you killed against better teams who will just be like, he's dumb. Let's kill him. Although Flame is looking a little. Another story is, a lot of players that were in the downswing are looking a lot better. Flame is another one of those where you're like, yeah, Flame's looking better in this meta now that he can play a little better. Yeah. Other than that, next we have probably the 3 top tier teams that are going to be the ones that are going to be challenging Liquid and TSM. Counter Logic Gaming, I think, is the weakest out of all of them. They are 0-2.
2-0.
They
wait. No, did you say COG 0-2?
Yeah, CLG
I keep missing like the second half of your sentences, and I don't know why. We got to build up that podcast chemistry again.
CLG lost both of their games. The first was against Cloud9, and that was a bit of a back and forth game. So I think Cloud9's better, so I think Cloud9 respectively won that. 100 Thieves, I think, had a fire lit under them. I feel like CLG can definitely take them in a straight fight. Yeah, CLG, You just got to doubt them. They'll be back. They'll be top 6, but they are definitely looking weaker right now. Cloud9 swapped out their jungler, swapped out their top laner. Licorice is looking at least solid enough to hold his own. Although we haven't seen him super challenged yet.
I
I
don't
like to
know.
see him against
Darshawn,
Hanser.
Darshawn and Someday are pretty impressive people to go against.
Yeah, but at the same time, like he got camped in one game and he still did relatively well with that. Second game, he didn't really get camped and he just kind of walked around into too much, but he held his own. He did what he needed to do for both those games. I want to see him against like Hanser. I want to see him against Impact and see how he does against that. He's definitely being picked on right now. In both games, he's been focused. Like they've been like, the weak lane's the top lane, let's go crush that. And then that's end up biting the opposite team because the mid lane goes off because Jensen's dangerous. Bot lane goes off because Sneaky can play really well. And Sven is another one people have been targeting a bunch, and he still plays really well when behind. And Reaper has actually come out saying, yeah, we're going to make sure that he plays smarter so there's not as many of these useless deaths. So I think Cloud9 is definitely going to be a contender for top 3, top 4. Then we have Echo Fox. You and me have some fun, different opinions of Echo Fox because Echo Fox went 2-0 this week. They looked pretty good doing it.
I mean, they are my number 3 team in North America.
Yeah, I think time's gonna tell for this team. Like I could also see them being top 3. I could see them challenging like someone in the semifinals. But at the same time, I'm just waiting for one bad day. One bad day, and Dardoch goes off and this team falls apart. There have just been way too many problems with Dardoch to this point where I'm just waiting for him to blow up. People look good when they're winning. They don't look good when they're starting to fall behind and get stomped at a game or two. So if maybe Rix Fox was the solution, maybe he's the one who keeps Dardoch under control. We'll see.
All right. Was that did you go through the entire roster or all the
Yeah.
teams? All right. I'm not going to do that. I have a write up that's about halfway done. I'm going to be doing my best to keep that write up. Cuz I started it before North America happened and I want to finish my placements cuz I'm a terrible person. So I'm not going to go through team by team like you did. But I do want to address a few things. One, I think a lot of the bottom tier teams surprises me because they're teams that you wouldn't expect to have communication issues. TSM, granted, did swap out most of their roster, and last time they did that, they barely made it into the playoffs when they got Yellow Star. And I was surprised to see that because Sven and Mithy have been playing together for quite a while now. And it's not like TSM was ever a bot focused team. Even with Double Lift, a lot of the attention still went to top and mid. So that was kind of surprising for me. Optic Gaming being 0-2 is surprising to me just because I feel like Clutch Gaming and 100 Thieves should have the same amount of, 5 random players playing with each other. But as it turns out, it looks like Clutch Gaming and 100 Thieves have been able to figure out their communication issues a lot better than Optic has. Again, CLG is the same way. They only replaced 2 players, and I think they're really missing the strong leadership that Aframu had. Biofrost was notorious in TSM for not ever shot calling, no matter how much they forced him to. And Reignover historically has looked weak unless he's playing with Huni. So that's kind of surprising. I don't think the 2-0 team are going to stay as dominating, particularly Team Liquid, who I think a lot of people have ranked number 1 in their power rankings now. I think that's a little too high for them. I think they belong at 2 or maybe even 3 just because of how shaky they looked against Optic Gaming. Other than that, I think I agree with everything that you said. Besides the Echo Foxing, I think this is another elephant in the room. Not really. We've talked about this quite a bit about Dardoch. When you look at the teams that Dardoch has been on, both iterations of Team Liquid that he was on, COG, and Immortals, there wasn't really anyone there that he could look up to. He's a very arrogant, strong personality, but he never struck me as someone like Caps, where or Perks earlier in his G2 days, where when he talks to them, they're like, "Yeah, I'm the best player." Caps had that infamous, "I want people to start calling Faker Baby Caps." And then Perks said something to his first year. I can't remember now about being better than Faker. And Dardoch never really struck me as that kind of arrogant. I've been watching a lot of My Hero Academia, as you know, and Dardoch actually reminds me a lot of Bakugo, where he's arrogant, but he also knows where his power limit is.
Sick
Um,
anime reference, Jay.
yeah, it's a sick anime reference. um, and he's never really had that being humble. And I know Immortals is supposed to be like this really friendly team, but again, there's no one there who could really step up to the plate and do what Dardoch does. And when both times that he was on Team Liquid, there wasn't anyone there who was willing to step up. Grant, yeah, Piglet was there, but if you watch Breaking Point, there's a scene where Piglet's just in bed, refusing to communicate with Loco Doco, and all Loco Doco's asking him to do is, "Can you please sit up? It feels like I'm talking to a child when you're lying down in your bed and I'm trying to talk to you." And Piglet just makes a fuss about it. Phoenix on Team Liquid just gave up for some reason, just decided that he didn't want to play anymore. Um, and then with COG, I know the big idea there was that Aphromo was this really strong shot caller that should be able to rein in Dardoch. And I think people forget that Aphromo was also the one that said, either Doublelift goes or I go, I don't want to play with him anymore. And I think COG even forgot that because Dardoch and Doublelift are both really strong personalities. And that's something that I think Echo Fox really excels in because they have Huni. Huni is an incredible top laner. Um, Dardoch's worked with Phoenix, and I don't think Dardoch's ever had anything bad to say about Phoenix specifically. When I watch Breaking Point, the only person I could see Dardoch really having a problem with would be Adrian. Has had issues in the past with people he was playing with, and again, I think the fact that Rick Fox is a basketball player, he probably knows how to deal with trouble players better than anyone else in the league, simply because. And I get that Rick Fox isn't going to be there, coaching Dardoch. I don't think Rick Fox and Dardoch is going to have the same relationship as Steve and Dardoch did in Breaking Point, where they're investing that much to keep him. But with that being said, I think Rick Fox, more than anyone else, knows how to handle strong personalities because basketball and really any professional physical sport are full of these people who are arrogant. Michael Jordan was an asshole. I don't think a lot of people, maybe a lot more people are realizing that now, I think. You see some of this crap Tom Brady does that you see on the news all the time, and all these great players that somehow are still able to play with a team. And I think, hopefully, maybe it's just blind optimism. Hopefully, Rick Fox can address that. Um, other other than that, I think FlyQuest is gonna get knocked out. I don't think this, as mean as this is to say, I don't think FlyQuest should get used to winning. Keen looks really good, but he's not going to be there for long. As soon as they get Fly, they're going to replace him Fly, and they're basically going to be having to start over again. Um, and I think Golden Guardians is going to still struggle, and that's about it. I think for what I wanted to say, I don't think this first week is a good indication of what the power rankings are going to be like 4 or 5 weeks from now, even before the next patch or the next big meta change. I think we're in for a surprise. It seems like a lot of these issues are communication issues or the lack thereof.
I agree.
So you said that you wanted to talk about Europe, which is funny because I think Europe has a few interesting upsets, but upsets to me aren't that interesting in best of ones. So maybe you'll inspire me to say more. So take it away, DJ.
Okay, so in Europe, I'm going game by game first day. So G2 versus Misfits, G2 wins. Not surprising. Second game. So H2K made a huge fuss about how they don't make enough money, and they were crying to the community to help them and all this other crap about how they can't spend money on a roster. So they're running with the cheap roster is what they're going with. Which honestly shows in the games they played as well. But Team Vitality, like I said, I didn't have a lot of like prior knowledge about a couple of these players. I didn't really look too much into rosters this year. I was just like, the top four are probably going to stay the top four. Same old, same old. So Team Vitality is looking really good. They have basically swapped out their entire roster. If I remember correctly, they have 4/5 of the Giants roster.
Yes.
That got got Giants out of the promotion series. And honestly, they in both the games they played, they looked really good. Now, granted, they were against H2K and Giants. Not too surprising there. But like Jizuke looks really good. Cabo's always been has always been like all right. He's always been like mid to top tier, depending on the meta. Gilius has always been at least mid tier, although he's looking pretty good in the current meta. Maybe he's taken all the rage that he makes from being a cocky, arrogant person and just using that to play better. I don't know.
Gilius is like the a-hole golden glue of Europe.
Yep. And then Mini Trupax and Jack Troll, the two new, like they look pretty good together. So like I was saying, this is 4/5 of a previous roster, so there is zero communication issues here. So that might end up being why they look good, and they might crash and burn after like higher tiered rosters start showing up. But we'll see. I liked watching them. They seemed a lot cleaner than a lot of Europe was. Giants looked really good in their game versus UL, and if I remember correctly, they did not look good during versus Team Vitality. Let me look at Giants roster one more time, because definitely UOL looks a lot worse for wear this year. Despite the fact that even if they lost 0-2, they are the only 0-2 team. I do like they picked non-meta champs for a couple things. I'm hoping we see some of that good old unicorn cheese again. But like White Knight looked all right, didn't look great. Exiles still kind of meh. Popping off from time to time, but not really we see Cold looked all right too. Cold, I thought, was hyped up a little too much, but I think he's like mid tier. He's all right. Samix and Totoro, mid tier, bot lane. I think they'll probably start winning a couple more games as they get a little more accustomed to each other, but they definitely didn't look good this week. Giants looks all right. I think they're, as they start to get a little more communicative, because Steelback's all right, Betsy's pretty good, Joko's a pretty decent jungler, and Ruin's looking all right. Like to see him on a little more varied, a little more things he can carry with. But in his game versus UL, he looked like he was stomping the yard. So I'm looking forward to Giants. And then Rocket looks like same old Rocket, the Giant Killers, but honestly, they just don't really have a lot of talent. They usually have like one player who's really talented, and that's about it. It seems the same about this year. They'll probably be bottom of the pack. And did Splice win their other game? They did, because they won against UOL. If I remember, I need to look at Splice's roster again real quick. I also need to look at Schalke's. I'll talk about Fnatic while I pull those two up. Fnatic did not change much from last year or at all. Except they got who is their sport?
Hylissang.
I think the same thing that happens with Fnatic every year is going to happen this year. They're going to look really bad, and they're going to do decently as they start to adapt to the meta faster than other people. and then they're going to get into they're going to get out. They're going to end up like third, and end up going to international competitions where they get the crap stomped out of them. And I think it's the same this year. Reckles looks terrible. Reckles' positioning in both games looked awful. He looks like he's not even there. And since he's not getting funneled all the resources now, he's looking really, really bad. Soaz still does Soaz things where sometimes he does pretty good and sometimes he just doesn't look like he knows what the hell he's doing. Caps, I hate Caps so much. He's such a I hate a lot of players on Fnatic, actually. I don't like Fnatic as a team. Caps, God, I hate the baby faker comments because he's not that good. I always hate to see them win a game. Like they won against Splice, and people just rode Caps. Like they were like, oh man, he's looking a lot better this season. And then they played their second game against HUK and they went, wow, Caps sucks. And they're like, yeah, Caps is a really hit or miss like as a mid laner. He is incredibly inconsistent. And it's usually because he plays too far forward or he's not playing with respect because people dick ride him. And it's terrible because he's not that good. Like I don't know. It's just, I don't like Caps. I don't like Caps because there's times he looks good, but it's usually not against good players. Yeah, they'll do what their usual Fnatic thing does. Right now, they're just kind of mid tier. If that. So Splice has Onamne, Xerxes, Niski, Kavi, and Kasing. Despite that very stacked roster, they did not look great in either of their games. I think this is a communication issue. I feel like this is a team that needs to work, like play a lot more together before they start really getting their stuff together because they have good people. They have Onamne, they have Xerxes, they have Niski, they have Kavi and Kasing. They have good players. I just think that there's something that's not meshing right now. And once they figure that out, they'll start to do a lot better. And Schalke, I'm excited for Schalke. Nukeduck looked really, really good this last week. I think this is a meta for him. Pride is serviceable. Vivasachi is serviceable. And then we didn't get to see their full strength with their bot lane this week because they had to play Vander and ADC, and they had to play Boris as their support, who is also their coach or one of their I think assistant coach.
He's an analyst.
Oh, analyst. Okay. So I'm curious to see how Upset does. So we can't really place these guys too deep in the power ranking just yet, just because they haven't been playing with their full roster. They looked good versus Roccat, but that's Roccat. They lost to Misfits. It's Misfits. So we'll see once they have their full roster if they'll mesh well together. We'll see. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of weird stuff in EU. There's a lot of like this could be really good, but it's early. And EU has a tendency of everyone beating everyone.
That's fair. So I did want to say a few things after listening to you. And I'll start off with the last thing that you said. You were talking about Schalke. Specifically what you said, how we haven't seen their full power yet. So for those of you guys who don't know, Boris is Crepo for FC Schalke. So in my mind, there's no doubt that Upset's a better ADC than Vander. Because if Vander was better than Upset, then Vander would be playing ADC and they'd pick up another support instead. But here's my thing: is I'm not convinced that Vander is better than Boris at support, simply because he's a team analyst. He's been playing support for a lot longer than Vander has. Boris has been, if I'm not mistaken, on a bunch of international teams. Maybe not a bunch, maybe just elements. I'm not sure. But I think Boris's game knowledge is insane, and he has that leadership that I don't know if Vander has. So I'm not convinced that when they get Upset Vander as their bot lane again, if they're gonna look as good. 'Cause you have to remember, before the scandal last year, teams were still wanting Boris to play for them. They were still trying to get him to sign on as a support. So it's not like he's fallen down in terms of skill. He's still a challenger in solo queue
I don't believe that's correct. I believe he's diamond actually.
right now. Well, what did he
Um,
finish last year? I guess the more important
I believe
question.
he finished diamond because I remember seeing it in the post game thread of, or during the game, I should say, where they were saying that that he's only diamond.
Okay, that's kind of
But
surprising,
he was
actually.
also a caster. He probably didn't play too much league after that whole thing happened. So we'll see. I think that's a hell of of a big call to say that he's better than Vander.
I'm not
Not sure
saying
if
he's.
I.
I'm not saying he's better. I'm saying I'm not convinced that Vander is going to be a huge upgrade because just the same way that CLG got rid of Aphromu and they got the mechanically better support in Biofrost, they lost that leadership. They lost that shot calling that Aphromu offered, the intangibles, as some people would say. And I'm not convinced that Vander will give those same things, considering um, he played on Vitality last year. Vitality didn't look great. He played on Schalke the year before that when Schalke got relegated. And really, the time that he shined the most was when he was playing on H2K. And if I'm not mistaken, his ADC that year was Forgiven and Nuclear. And he looked good when they was with Forgiven. He didn't look that great with Nuclear. So I don't want to say that Vander was a problem in all those teams, but I also don't want to say that Vander's going to be a significant upgrade over someone with those kinds of leadership skills. That's all I'm saying. I'm pretty sure Vander mechanically is better than Boris.
And what you said is definitely Vander's or upsets a better ADC. You could see that in the games. Uh, you could look at the CS. That's what the word I'm looking for. You can look at the CS score for him, and he was way behind. So, like, yeah, Vander is definitely a worse ADC than Upset. So definitely that'll be an upgrade.
And
But it was a
let's
role swap. You expect it to be an upgrade. If it isn't
yeah,
an upgrade, there's
then
a
there's something
problem.
wrong. And that's basically it. I did a write up on EU's team that I actually finished posting. That'll be in the description. Um, but just one thing that I said there is I think Betsy's one of the most. I don't actually remember if I said it there or if I just said it to you while we were talking. I think Betsy's one of the most underrated mid laners in EU, which isn't surprising because he has to compete against Sankooks, he has to compete against Perks. Um, I know you don't like Caps, but Caps is still a strong mid laner in EU, in my opinion.
Which team is Suncook's on?
Sankooks is on Misfits.
Okay, that's why.
Um, and I think Nuke Duck is someone I want to see get really good. Joko is also someone I want to see do really well. Um, and yeah, I'm interested to see how Kasing does. Kasing's a player that gets a lot of hype. But just the teams that he's been on recently has not looked great. So we'll
Which is
see.
funny because the Kasing effect was the thing that he could put them on a bad team. He made them look good.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that 100%. At least not recently. Um, so we'll see how that goes. I think I don't really want to dwell too much onto it. I don't think I have anything to add to it that you didn't already say. That I didn't already put down in the write up. So with that, what games are you most excited for this week? What do you think is going to be the games to watch?
All right, we'll start with NA. I am interested in TSM versus Optic. I think that's the big game where either TSM walks in and says, "Okay, we don't actually suck," or that's where Optic goes, "Yeah, we can learn to close out games." Um, I think Echo Fox versus Cloud9 is going to be another good one to watch that day. I day one I think is going to be a good watching day because there's not a match on that day that I would say I would be particularly. Actually, no, that's not true. I'll go to every game except the last one,
Yeah,
Last one on Friday, I'll be like, I'm not interested in this. Bye.
I was gonna say you don't seem like the kind of person to be excited for FlyQuest versus old FlyQuest.
Yeah, nah. I'm not super interested in that game. The next day, you have TSM versus Echo Fox, which is a really, I think, is going to be the first big, like they play. Actually, let me rephrase that. I think this is Echo Fox's test week to see if they face adversity, if they're going to break apart, like I was saying. Because they have Cloud9 first day and TSM the next day. That's going to be a good match watching Echo Fox versus TSM. Other than that, Liquid versus Clutch will probably be interesting, but the three mid games, I'm kind of like I basically know who's going to win both of these or all three of these. I think the Cloud9 versus 100 Thieves team one game is at least going to be entertaining. But past that, I feel like after that, I'll just look at the game threads for the Optic and FlyQuest and GG versus KLG.
Okay.
Or actually, I'll let you do NA before I go to my EU.
All right. So for NA, the team to watch, I think, is going to be Optic Gaming. Both of the games that they're going against are against not great teams. FlyQuest is 1-1, TSM is 0-2. This has to be the week where Optic Gaming, at worst, has to go 1-1. To really prove themselves. Every analyst, and including like you, think Optic Gaming is going to be in the bottom tier, not bottom tier, but like bottom of the pack. And this is the week that they have to prove that that's not going to be true. Sunday, I don't see too many games that are going to be too interesting, I think. I mean, I think they're all going to be good games. They're not really games I think you have to watch specifically. Saturday, though, offers some really, really interesting matchups. And the three, I think, are the three middle games. I'm going to go
Really?
backwards. Yeah. So I'm gonna go backwards. 100 Thieves versus Liquid. This is really the game of shot callers. Who's a better shot caller, Pobelser or Aframu? I think Pobelser's the shot caller for Team Liquid.
I assume everyone probably shot calls except Impact.
That's fair. So I mean, I guess it's gonna be kind of like Pobelser Olay because I know Olay is pretty shot callery support versus Aframu against 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves roster wise look, in my opinion, the weakest of the between 100 Thieves, Clutch Gaming, Optic Gaming. I think lane by lane, they're the weakest. And maybe you disagree, but their shot calling is pretty good. They have to close out games to go against Team Liquid because I think Team Liquid across the board has better individual players, except maybe Top. I'm not sure how Impact versus Sunday's going to go. Both of them are world renowned.
I think it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, I think it's definitely gonna be one of the more fun games. Cloud9 versus Echo Fox. This is gonna be a big test for Echo Fox. This is easily their hardest game that they've had to go against so far, including Sunday's game. And like you said, it's really gonna come down to if this team can hold up. I think they're gonna be able to. This is exactly what you want to see. Licorice is gonna have to go against Huni. Huni's debatably the best top laner in North America right now. So that's gonna be a really interesting game to watch. But Cloud9's been missing shot calling. I think that's the way you're gonna have to beat Echo Fox is by out rotating them. Both games that they won because they were able to rotate so much faster than the other two teams. And then I left the shortest for last, TSM versus Optic Gaming. Both of these teams have something to prove. Both of them are 0-2 right now. And both of them would hate going into Sunday being 0-3. They both have incredibly talented rosters that I think are just suffering from communication issues right now. Like I mentioned earlier, I think TSM has a slightly easier chance of fixing those communication issues than Optic Gaming does. But the pressure's on TSM because if they can't beat Optic Gaming, there's not a good chance that they're going to be able to beat Echo Fox. Even if Echo Fox loses on Saturday, I don't think they're going to be toasted enough that they won't be able to beat TSM because Echo Fox look like a team that's been playing for years. And Optic Gaming is going against FlyQuest, so there's a little less pressure there, but I think Optic Gaming would love heading into week 3 at 2-2.
All right, and then we got EU.
And also, I think the Golden Guardians versus FlyQuest games can be kind of fun to watch because, in my opinion, those are the two bottom teams in North America right now. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe I'll be wrong, but
like I said, Saturday's at least going to be an interesting game or game day. Like I feel like that it's going to keep me locked in my seat for that day.
so what do you got for Europe? What games
I
are you
think I'll
excited
let you
for?
go first on this one,
You
actually,
want
Jay.
you want me to go first?
Yeah.
All right. So Saturday's kind of a day that, or not Saturday. I'm sorry, Friday. It's kind of a day that I don't think is going to be that interesting. Um, I think the most interesting game on Friday is going to be Giants versus G2 and Vitality versus Fnatic. Splice versus Rocket, Misfits versus HTK. Both of those are 1-1 teams going against another 1-1 team. But I think HTK is the worst team in the EU right now, and I think Misfits are number 2 team or number 3 team in the EU right now. Oh, I was going to talk about how my power ranking has changed. Eh, I'll talk about that next week after I have more data to expound upon. So I think Misfits and Splash are going to be able to win those games really easily. I think Giants have something to prove. They looked really impressive game one last week, and really not that impressive game two, and really the same for G2. And you could argue that G2 was spending more time prepping for Misfits because that was going to be the harder team between Misfits and Rocket. But you can't drop games like that, especially in best of ones where every single game counts. You only play 18 games in a season, so you have to make sure each one counts, especially because league tiebreaker rules are not great. And then Vitality versus Fnatic, both of them are going to be vying for a higher ranking. Obviously, I think this is a game that's going to kind of show what kind of team Vitality and Fnatic are. Saturday, depending on how the Vitality Fnatic game goes, I think Vitality versus Misfits and Fnatic versus G2 could be interesting, or they could be stomps because both of those teams have stuff to prove on Friday. So I would say whichever team wins that one is going to be interesting to watch on Saturday. And then Splice versus Schalke, I think it's also going to be another really fun one to watch because both of them have the potential to be middle of the pack teams, and they could kind of start working on separating themselves with this game.
Well, you and me don't have that many different picks on this one. I agree. Giants versus G2 is going to be a lot of let's see how Giants does against arguably the top team in Europe. Um, and Vitality versus Fnatic is let's see if Vitality can go up against what is arguably a tough team, or if Fnatic's just going to fold. Um, whereas Saturday, Vitality versus Misfits should at least be interesting to see. Um, that'll be. I think this is a test week for Team Vitality where it's like, all right, let's see if they're actually that good or if they were just going against crap teams. Um, and then G2 versus Fnatic, regardless of how much I think G2 is going to stomp that, it's going to be the hyped up match. It's going to be the one where everyone's tuning in. It's going to be where everyone's like super hyped up to watch it. It's going to be what pulls in most viewers. So I think it'll be at least worth a watch.
All right, so we're coming to the end of our episode. It's a lot longer, but I don't think our feature episode is going to be as long because we're not going to be doing a roster breakdown every single episode, or a team breakdown, I guess. So real fast though, I want to ask you one question, two questions, and I'll answer them after you answer yours. So ignoring skill level, ignoring um, how good or bad you think a team is, which game in both NA and EU do you think are going to be the closest game, and which game do you think is going to be a complete stomp? One game per region, or yeah, one game each per region.
One game each for both days. All right. The one that's going to be closest. That is an excellent question, actually. For NA, I have to say Cloud9 versus Echo Fox.
Okay.
And for EU, I want to say I'm gonna go out of left field here and say UOL versus Rocket.
Okay, that's funny. All right,
What are
so
yours, Jay?
the closest game I think is going to be Golden Guardians versus FlyQuest. You know, I know Hai has this reputation of being this great shot caller. When he was on FlyQuest, I did not see that. I did not see them closing out games that they were ahead in. I did not see them pulling. I didn't see any comebacks of amazing shot calling. And on like, I'm sure Hai's a great shot caller. I'm not. I don't want to take anything away from him. I think Hai's a really good player. But like when you have people like Aframu or Double Lift or like just a plethora of other players, I feel like high shot calling gets incredibly overrated, and I could just so easily see Golden Guardians versus FlyQuest just being this crazy clown fiesta. In EU, that was a little bit harder. Um, and I'm also gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say the closest game is gonna be Vitality versus Misfits. I think Misfits is a step down from where they were last year, and I think Vitality is a huge step up from where they were last year. I think they're actually really close in terms of skill, which is a far cry from where I put them in my power ranking. So I think Vitality versus Misfits is going to be the closest game. So which ones do you think is going to be a stomp? Same rules.
All right, the Stompyist.
Yeah. Think the Team Liquid versus TSM game where Team Liquid won in 21 minutes with 1 kill against and like 8 kills for.
Man, that's actually really hard for NA. Um, honestly, there's no good options on either day. I don't think there's any like super like skill gap between any of these. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Optic versus FlyQuest.
Okay.
Um, I honestly could also see CLG versus Golden Guardians. Other than that, I don't see any of those games being a stomp in NA. As for EU, I think I'm gonna go Schalke versus UOL.
Oh, I was actually gonna say that as much as it like pained me, but I think you're not. I think you're gonna be very unhappy with what I say for EU. But North America, I think it's gonna be Liquid versus Clutch Gaming. Um, I don't know. Liquid's been playing with this, especially against the TSM game, which made sense. But it feels like Liquid's trying trying to prove something right now. They're just trying to show that they're the best team by far in North America, and they kind of stumbled game two. I don't really see that happening against Clutch Gaming. I don't like Febvin. I probably feel the same way about Febvin as you feel about Caps, and I don't know why. I think Lyra's pretty good, but last year he was still good last year, and he wasn't able to make his team look good. Honestly, don't know much about Solo. I know a lot of people think that he's pretty good, but I don't think that's really going to be an issue for Impact. And Apollo and Hakuho is like the most consistent mid lane or bot lane in the world, but they're incredibly boring, and I don't think they're going to be able to handle Double Lift and Olay. In EU, I think it's going to be Giants versus G2. I think Giants were just I don't know. I don't want to say that they got lucky because that's just really condescending towards them, but I think they got lucky. I think Perks is miles better than Betsy. And I think Yanko is miles better than Joko. Here's the thing about Giants Gaming, and I talked about this in my write up. Giants Gaming is like team potential. They're the same as Team Vitality was last year, where they're just a bunch of players that you just go, oh, Betsy has potential to be the best mid laner in Europe. Joko has potential to be the best jungler in Europe. But the thing about G2 is Perks is the best mid laner in EU. Jankos is the best jungler in EU. And I think, especially after a loss last week against Rocket, G2 has something to prove. They're just going to stomp Giants Gaming. I think it's going to be a sub 25-minute game.
Okay.
So we'll see. Next week I guess it's still kind of early because what we talk about usually revolves around what happens in the game. I do know I kind of want to talk about the junglers next week, and oh man, there was something else I want to talk about next week, but I can't remember it now. As soon as I remember, I'll let you know. For everyone else, you guys will have to wait till next week. We record this on Monday. I'm probably gonna upload this Tuesday. Um, just so that's upload at a better time. So if thing like roster stuff happens throughout Tuesday, it's not gonna be included here, obviously. And I'm playing around with trying to upload it to new formats. I don't know if I like Podbean better, if I want to upload to YouTube. YouTube, honestly, is easier for me to set up, but I feel like Podbean is more interesting because you don't have to have a video playing. And the video's literally just been my desktop, and then when I popped open the Excel spreadsheet. I don't know, DJ. Do you have anything that you want to talk about next week? Stuff that I should specifically watch out for?
Nothing I can think of right now, but we got a whole week of time to think of stuff.
So if anyone's listening, and you got this far, kudos to you. It's been a long podcast.
We always have a long podcast, yeah. At this point, it's the norm.
It is. It's the normal length for a podcast. I'm trying to take steps to shorten it down. That didn't happen.
They haven't worked yet.
But we'll see. Next week should be shorter because we're not, like I said, we're not talking about 20 different teams again.
Yeah.
So, I remember what I want to talk about next week. I want to talk about the meta again, but specifically, if it's a late game meta. We've had the longest game in Korea at 95 minutes, 1,300 farm. That's an insane amount of farm, even for a Sivir. So I want to talk about that, but I kind of want to wait for one more week because I feel like the first week games tend to go longer anyways because teams have different ideas of what the meta is and they want to play slower. Now that they have a better grasp of it, maybe they'll go faster, but we'll see. So keep that in mind, DJ, while you watch these games. We need to figure out a way to sign out that doesn't sound awkward. Why don't you take us out, DJ?
You're going to throw it at me? You're going to throw it at me?
You got this, man. I had to introduce us.
Well, then I'll end it by saying I'd say we'd see you on the Rift, but both of us are ranked so low. Hopefully you never do.
Good one.
This has been Low Tier Talks League.